There's four main documents that you need before you hire and pay a contractor. Otherwise, you could be held liable for some stuff. Now, I've been a real estate investor and a GC for 15 years. I've flipped over 300 houses and paid literally hundreds of contractors. So in this video, I'm going to show you what those four documents are and how you collect them without looking like a jackass. And also what you should do if you've hired an unlicensed contractor, which sometimes you want to do. So let's get into those four documents that you're going to need right off the bat. Number one is you're going to need a W-9. Okay, so this is like, you probably heard that you need to send out your 1099s at the end of the year. And a 1099 is derived from a W-9. Like when you have to fill out your W-2, well, this is the contractor's version. And when I say contractor, I mean any vendor who's a third party to your company. So an employee you actually hire, you give a W-2 to. And anybody who's outside your organization that you're paying money to, anything over like $500, you have to have them fill out a W-9. And that way at the end of the year, or actually I think it's at the end of January, you have to send out all your 1099s to let the IRS know, hey, I paid these people money. And we're actually going to get into some tax stuff. So before you let them get on the job site and start working, you want to get the W-9. Number two is you want to get a GL policy. All right, so this is your general liability. Now, I'm going to actually just go ahead and add right here number three, which is workers' comp, and let's talk about that a little bit. All right, if you are a general contractor like I am, you need to get a general liability policy and a workers' comp policy if I'm hiring people. All right. So the general liability policy covers a lot of things, but basically it covers if I go ruin somebody's house, my insurance would pay for those things. Of course, it's insurance, so they would try to make me pay for it. But that's the reason you get GL policies. So for you as an investor who's hiring a contractor or whatever, you hiring a contractor, you want to make sure that that contractor has their GL policy, because if they don't and something like that happens, it's going to be your butt that has to pay for it. Now, it's going to get a little bit hairy here, so stick with me here. So you might have a GC with a GL policy, GC, general contractor, okay, and they're going to go hire whatever, contractor one, contractor two, maybe it's an electrician. They might go hire a plumber, okay, they might go hire all these different contractors. And, what the GC should do is make sure that each one of these has a GL policy. And for you, you don't really give a dang about any of the people that the GC is hiring. That's for the GC to worry about. You only want to care about the people that you are paying. And that's going to be a theme here. It's the person that you are paying that you need to worry about. Now, it might be that you follow my advice and you don't actually hire a GC, that you work as your own GC, MIY method. And that means that instead of that GC being there, this is you, and you are hiring a bunch of contractors. That is what I suggest you do. That does mean that you're going to be collecting a lot of GL policies and workers' comp. So GL is about people messing up the property and other things in that umbrella, whereas workers' comp is specifically about protecting the people that get hired to do work. So let's just say that the contractor, going back to this example here, the contractor one has a guy that works for him. And that guy is up working on a roof on your house, and he falls off the roof and breaks his neck. Okay. The family comes and they go to sue contractor one, the person who hired him, of course. And, contractor one doesn't have any money and doesn't have a workers' comp policy. Okay. Well, they want to get their money. And so they're just going to go up the chain. They're going to say, okay, well, and I'm not a legal guy here. Just this is basically how it works. This is what you're protecting yourself from. Anyway, contractor one, he doesn't have any money. They never have any money. And so where are you going to go? Well, the guy that can buy real estate, of course. Okay. But if you have verified that this guy has a workers' comp policy, that is what's going to take care of the guy who fell off the roof. Now, of course, if you're acting in complete negligence or whatever, you could definitely still be held liable for these things. But as long as you're acting normally, like, you guys aren't going to act negligently because you're not bad people. Okay. So good to go there. Last thing that you want to collect is, we're going to do it in red because, I already started writing. Last thing that you want to collect is a business license, or if they don't have that one, like a personal license. Okay, this one's pretty important, guys. Everybody's in the news talking about ICE and immigration and all that kind of stuff. Now, we're not getting into politics on this channel. However, you do want to make sure that the person that you're about to pay money to is a legit worker in our country. Okay. And so business license, of course, if they have like an operating LLC, if they have a legitimate business, that's going to be good for you. You're paying the legitimate business. But if they don't, which a lot of guys, like, you might go up to Home Depot to hire somebody to work for you. They don't necessarily need to have a company set up, but they need to have some sort of license or whatever documentation that says they can legally work. Okay. But a sole proprietorship. So basically just a quick lesson for you. Okay, this is if you wanted to start a business. Now, you can go get paid from a customer directly, or what most people do is, instead of directly from the customer, they put an LLC in front of themselves. So then the customer pays the LLC, and then, of course, you take money out of the LLC that you own, operate, and control. Okay, but if there's an LLC that's made there, it's a LLC. Some people might set up the company different ways, but most people LLC. If they pay you directly, you've probably set up what's called a sole proprietorship. So just for simple figuring, LLC means there's a company. If you're paying the person directly, it's a sole proprietorship. Okay, sole proprietorship is totally fine, but that means instead of a business license, which you would get with an LLC, you need to have a personal license. Now, that license is different from a license like a general contractor has a license. Okay, that is a business license, is a license to do business in a certain county or city. So now let's talk real quick about licenses to do specific trades. Okay, so you might be hiring a general contractor, as we talked about, and a general contractor is not really going to be able to pull permits. Now, I made a whole video about permits, so I'm not going to go deep into that, but a GC has a license to be a general contractor. A general contractor can pull building permits to do a project on a house. However, probably they're going to hire an electrician, HVAC, and plumbing as well, because they need that work done, because a GC cannot pull permits to do electrical. That has to be a licensed master electrician. So you got an electrician that pulls a permit underneath this building permit that the GC has pulled. And then you have like a plumber, master plumber, who pulls a permit under the building permit, the main building permit. I know it gets confusing. HVAC, same thing, except for HVAC guys never pull their permits. Anyway, you get the idea. So these guys will have to be licensed. Now, if you're acting as your own GC, of course, you got to collect all this stuff from the HVAC, electrical, plumbing. And if you are acting as your own GC, you're going to have to find a way to get the building permit. Once again, made that video. I'll link it up at the end here. But anyway, if it's the GC, you just need to make sure that they're pulling a permit. So here's what I want to talk about now. There's these 4 documents you need, and possibly a 5th if it's somebody who's getting permits. And it's like, well, you don't want to lead with all that. That's like, you when you're hiring a contractor, you're really wanting to focus on getting the best price, getting the schedules lined up and stuff. That's your primary goal. This is all a bunch of BS that you just have to deal with. And I don't want you guys to get concerned about all this stuff. It's a lot easier than you think. But anyway, you don't want to muddy up your negotiation with these guys with a bunch of paperwork crap. All right. That's going to make it harder to get what you both want out of the deal. So now I want to talk about how you eloquently get this stuff, or i.e., as I led in here, how do you get this stuff without looking like a jackass? Okay, so here's the process that I follow. All right, my main goal is, of course, making sure that I have the best pricing and a completed scope of work. Okay, so that's my main goal. So here's what I do. And I'm not going to talk about recruiting contractors. I make a lot of content about how you profile the right kind of contractors that you want for these jobs, and then how you actually recruit them. So at this point, they are on your job site and they're bidding a job on your project. I'm going to have the scope of work ready, right? Because if you know me, you know that I believe that you as an investor, you are the one who creates the vision and casts the vision for a project. You need to know how to build a scope of work. These guys are going to come in and they're going to help refine that scope of work. But anyway, I already have my scope of work and I'm walking the project with them. Okay, we talk about all this stuff. We're going to do a scope of work in 3 ways. I have the written, they're going to help me refine it. We're going to talk about it, and then we're going to make a video to make sure that we all agree upon it. Okay, so that's the first thing that we're doing, is we are getting this contractor to make sure we're aligned on the scope of work. And when they leave there, that's all we're talking about, is making sure that we're aligned on the scope of work, because they're going to go and they're going to give me a bid. I only care about the one thing right now. First thing is I care about the price. So I have the scope of work and I'm getting the price and nothing else. That's all we're talking about. We're not talking about schedule. We're not talking about documents. We're not talking about any of that crap. Okay, so I get the price. And now if I agree upon the price, now I move forward. If I don't agree, maybe we go back and forth and we talk about these things. It's not like you nickel and dime these guys. But that's not what this video is about. Okay, let's just say that we agree upon the price. Now we move on to the pay schedule. All right, this is an important part of accepting a bid. So I've accepted the price, but now I want to move to, okay, I want to make sure that we have a pay schedule, right? So here are the 10 jobs that I'm having you do within the scope of work. Are you wanting to get paid after you get all 10 done, or do you need to break it down into smaller chunks? Like, we do these 3 and then you get paid, then we do 4 more and you get paid again. These are the checkpoints, as I would call them. And I want to make sure that that's agreed upon at first. Now, I want to take a second to say this. You never pay in front of the work. The money is the power in this game, not in a negative way. It's just that these guys have a lot of things going on, and you will get put on the back burner if they've already gotten the money out of you. And so the money is the key piece in this chess game. And you need to make sure that you don't pay in front. A lot of guys are going to say, well, I need to get this up front before I start work. I'm sorry, then I'll have to find another contractor to do this. And, this happens often. And literally some people will pass. But most of the time, if you just say, listen, I buy houses for a living. I never pay up front. I've gotten burnt too many times. I've had people in the business who have been burnt too many times. If this is your first time and you don't feel comfortable saying that because it's a lie, you have friends in the business who have done this. I'm your friend in the business. I have gotten burnt so many times. That's why this is a hard rule. Okay, I just can't pay you up front. I'm sorry, but I can do lots of things to make it easy on you. Okay, we can, if you're wanting money for materials, we'll set up a pro Home Depot account, and you can go up there, pick the materials that you need, and I can pay for them over the phone, and it's a really easy process. Home Depot has it locked up pretty good, or whatever you got to do to pay for the materials. That way they're not putting money out. Like, you don't want to put them in a bad situation. You just don't want to put yourself in a bad situation. And so they would go up and get materials. And then, man, we can cut the jobs down as small as you want, because I realize that you haven't worked with me yet. So maybe you need to build some trust with me. And literally we can take 1 day's work out of this. How much do you need paid after 1 day? And just to prove how trustworthy I am, I'll go there at the end of every day with a check. You did the work that we agreed upon. Here's the check. Then I'm basically breaking down a project into like so many checkpoints. That's of course a lot of bandwidth from me. And I don't want to do that in the long term, but as I'm trying to build trust, maybe I would do that. Of course, I personally would not do that at this point, because there's lots of things that I can point to that says I am a good payer. And that is the reputation that I want and strive for. Okay. So pay schedule. Whew, tangent, huh? Kinda. Pay schedule, never pay up front, guys. And now that I have those two things that I absolutely need, now I can move on to the next thing, which I ask for my docs. Okay. Now, up to this point, I have just assumed that they have those things. And that's right to assume. It would be unreasonable to not have those things as a business owner. So it's okay to assume those things. Sometimes I will in the recruiting phase. All right. So you have profiling, then recruiting. This is where I'm building my pipeline of contractors. And then we have the SOW, which is the point that we're at right now. But I might, like, when I've recruited them, when I first met them, I might have passed over, and you got like all your stuff, this is after like a whole pitch, which I've talked to you guys about in other videos. But after all that, I might just breeze over, and you got like your documents and stuff, W-9, GL, all that. Yeah. Good. They always say that's good, but they always say it's good if they want to work with you. And then they're probably trying to figure out how the hell they get the stuff. But whatever, cool. Or maybe they have it already because they've been through all this. Okay, so after you've gotten the pay schedule agreed upon and the price agreed upon, now you're going to ask for those docs. And, basically, I don't want to stop work from getting started. So I always tell people very clearly, I cannot give you a check until I have these things in my hand. And it is no BS, because for me as a GC, I hold a GL policy, I hold a workers' comp policy, and I get audited at the end of every year. And they're going to come look at all the people I paid. All right. I mean, that's the paper trail. Is all right, you paid this contractor. Let me see the copy of their general liability policy. You paid this contractor. Let me see their workers' comp. And if I can't provide it, then I have to pay for their workers' comp. Right. So let's just say that it's 10% of, different. How do I explain this to you? Different job codes have different percentages that you might have to pay for workers' comp. For instance, a roofer is going to, you're going to have to pay a lot more for a roofer than you would have to for a painter, for instance, or actually a plumber is a really low percentage. And the lowest yet is like an admin worker, somebody that works in the office. And that's why most of the people that are talking about workers' comp, everybody's got workers' comp, but like if you run an office business, nobody cares because it's not a significant expense. For a contractor, is a huge expense. So like, I'm throwing numbers here, but I think these are pretty accurate. For a roofer, it'd be like 30%. So if I paid a roofing company $10,000 who didn't have workers' comp, I might at the end of the year have to pay $3,000 of that back to cover the workers' comp for when I hired that person. Do you see what I'm saying here? So it's a significant deal to make sure you got the workers' comp. Now, for you as an investor, not a GC, you're not gonna get audited because you don't have a workers' comp policy. Okay, but the reason it is so significant of a price from my insurance company is because, well, roofers fall off roofs and they break their neck and then they get sued. Okay, so it is a true liability for you that somebody could die and their family's coming after you. So you want to make sure you have a legal barrier between you. Okay, and I don't say that lightly either. You should make sure that people aren't doing stupid things on your job sites and getting hurt. Okay. You don't want people in danger there. Okay. So, circling back in the recruiting phase, I may have mentioned that I want those documents. Okay. And now I am at the point where I have to pay those people, and I'm not going to write a check before I do that. However, I have let them know up front, and I am like so clear about it that literally I cannot write you a check until you have those things. So I would love if you got it for me before you ever set on job sites, but I just don't want it to be a thing when it comes time to pay you and you're like, oh, I don't have those documents, because that happens often, that somebody will say they have them thinking that it's not that big a deal to get them, and then they don't have them. Now, that's still a risk that you're taking. So I'm not suggesting that you do that. I'm suggesting that you make sure they have that stuff before they set foot on your job site. And you absolutely, you do not let somebody set foot on your job site without the business license or the personal license. That's where you're going to get yourself in some serious trouble. All right, now let's talk about permitting and such, which we already talked about permitting, but how do you verify these things? All right, I have definitely seen it happen to where somebody will say they have the ability to pull permits, whatever. They're a master electrician and they can pull permits, and they do the whole job, get paid, and they never pulled any permits. I've seen that happen. It's happened to me, okay, and I've seen it happen to other people. All right, so again, you don't pay people until you've verified these things. And with the permitting stuff, that is going to be on you. All right. You can sit there and say until you're blue in the face. Somebody comes in and does a whole project and they haven't pulled permits. And then the inspectors come in, the city comes in and they say, hey, this work was done without permits. You're going to have to open up the walls so we can see all this. And you can sit there until you're blue in the face saying, oh, the contractor I hired, they said they pulled them and stuff. And it's going to be like, okay, cool. Still haven't seen the stuff inside the walls. So let's open them up, buddy. And then you can go hire the people who have the permits so they can pull the permits, because there's going to be some work to do. Like, they're not going to let you off the hook. You're still going to have to go back and pull the permits. All right. Even if all the work was done perfectly, still going to need to be permitted. All right. And something tells me that it's going to be extra hard after the fact. So you want to verify that the work that's being done is permitted if you've done a job that needs permitted. And if a person up front has said they can pull permits, verify that they pulled the permits. Now, there's another thing that you can do here is there's verifications for every state. Little pro tip here. This is how you can find contractors as well. But a contractor, for instance, myself, I'm a licensed general contractor, also a licensed master electrician, master plumber, and HVAC and gas. What's up? And anyway, if you look me up, you can find all of those licenses. You're not going to find them in my personal name. They're going to be in my company's names. But the point is, if you have hired a contractor, they've given you their business license that they'll be doing business under, then you can just go to your state's website and you'll be able to find those licenses. At least in every state that I've ever lived in. I imagine that if it's not easily available online, there's, whatever the state Secretary of State, whatever the office is that you call to figure those things out. But you can verify all those things. You can verify that permits have been pulled. Technically speaking, from the code book itself, if they pulled a permit, they should be posting that thing on the job site in a visible place. Nobody does that, but they're supposed to be. Okay, let's talk about taxes. All right, a lot of people want to pay the contractor in cash, and that's how they're going to get a good deal. And it'd have to be a hell of a good deal for that to make sense for you. A lot of times somebody says, okay, this job's going to be $10,000. And, how about I pay you cash and we do $9,000? Okay, well, that'd be a really crappy deal for you. And here's why. So on the proceeds of a flip, let's say, all right, short-term capital gains. Short-term capital gains, the IRS comes after you. Okay, they want their money. You're going to pay seriously, 50% of your profits you're probably going to be paying in tax if you don't do anything to mitigate that. And we're not going to get into all those strategies right now, but the point is, let's just say it's 50%. So you make $40,000 on a flip. That's profit. 20,000 of that's going to Uncle Sam. Okay, but the profits come from, let's do some iPadding here. Okay, you have a house you buy for $300,000. You do a $60,000 renovation. You had bought the house for, let's say, $150,000. All right, so now you're $90,000 of profit, but let's say that you have spent, just to make my example awesome, you spent another 50 grand on other stuff. You didn't, but your profit is $40,000. Okay, now this number here, this is the number for the rehab. But let's say that you spent $10,000 cash and paid that guy. Well, that means that the $10,000 is not here. So instead of 60, that's 50. And now instead of 40, that's 50. So instead of paying $20,000 in taxes, now you're paying $25,000 in taxes. So that discount you got from $10,000 to $9,000, the $1,000 discount you got, well, great, but it made you pay $5,000 more in taxes. That sucks. Okay, not a good deal, guys. So literally, the only discount that would have made sense there is I'm going to pay, instead of $10,000, I'll pay you, $5,000. Eesh, not going to happen, right? Hopefully, they don't have that much margin in it. But some of you might be thinking, well, I could just pay him, cash, and I can actually report that cash to the IRS. Well, maybe, but that's kind of a crappy thing you're doing to that contractor because they're giving you a cash discount because they think that's how they're going to mitigate their tax play. Just don't get involved in it. Get everything done electronically, write checks, have your QuickBooks or however you're keeping your books so you actually know what stuff costs you and you start to create a radar for how much construction jobs cost and how much profit you actually made off of a certain project. And that will help you grow as a real estate investor instead of, the cash stuff. It's too much to manage, guys. Now, I don't want all this stuff to blow your mind. Okay. This is like what happens to a lot of people as they start thinking about freaking taxes and bookkeeping and legalities and attorneys and stuff. I shouldn't even be a real estate investor. It's just too much. Nah. Okay, guys, listen. Nobody's going to sue you if you got no money. So if you haven't made any money as a real estate investor, there's nothing to come after you about. Okay. And if you've made money in other things, you're just separating the real estate enterprise from your personal stuff anyway. It's that simple. Like you set up an LLC and you buy a house in it. All right. And once again, not giving legal advice here, but it's really, I have set up an LLC on my phone in the parking lot of a bank account, went into the not bank account, but went into the bank, set up a bank account with the LLC EIN number that I just got on my phone in their parking lot, and boom, there you go. I funded the account with something out of my personal account, and now I have a business. It's ready to go. Of course, there are more steps to it, but the point is, don't let that be the thing that stops you. And a lot of people freak out about the books and all that kind of stuff and the taxes and like thinking about all the tax strategies and such. Well, listen, until you have any profits, you don't got to worry about taxes. So why don't you worry about gaining the skills that makes you consistently get profits? Who cares if you got to pay a little bit extra in taxes this year, because that means that you made a whole bunch of money, gained a whole lot of skills, and later on you can go worry about those things. All right. And the contractors and the documents, okay, that's some stuff that is acute. All right. Somebody falls off a roof, comes and sues you. That's a game ender. Okay. And not only that, from a business perspective, it's a game ender. From a humanitarian standpoint, that's a really bad situation. You don't want that to happen. That's not something that you want on your watch or anybody's. And so just make sure that you have those things. Okay. But don't let it hinder you from, getting the right deal and getting the scope of work aligned and all that. And that's why I have that process. And the permit thing can be mind blowing, but I made a whole video about exactly how you do that. You can watch that right here. And as you guys probably already know, I have a school community that's free for now. This whole video is actually a response to somebody asking a question about these exact things. And I can do the same thing for you. Check it out. The link's in the description. See you guys later.